Welcome to Industry Focus, the podcast that dives into a different sector of the stock market every day. It's Friday, April 20th, and we're talking small cap tech stocks. I'm your host, Dylan Lewis, and I'm joined in the studio by Fool.com's Brian Feroldi. Brian, awesome to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here in person.
Yeah, it's a very different dynamic doing the show with someone in the studio rather than on Skype.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's fun to do it with you. I mean, you're someone who traditionally covers healthcare for Fool.com. As an investor, you really like the tech space and the software space, though.
I do love the software space. I do love the tech space. So even though I do write primarily about healthcare stocks, I do own and invest in many tech companies.
And I was excited to have you on because so many of our recent episodes for the tech show have been about these mega cap tech stocks. There's been so much news about Facebook. We had this recent Spotify issuance. We haven't really been talking a lot about discovery stocks for investors. We haven't been uncovering a whole lot. And I know that you're someone that looks at, the sub $10 billion market cap space a lot for companies. And so that's where you can find some really big growth opportunities and some companies that maybe people aren't as familiar with. And so that's going to be the slant of today's show. We're going to talk about a couple different stocks that you're particularly excited about. Before we get over to that discussion, though, why don't we talk a little bit about what you look for in a business?
Sure. So I primarily like to invest in companies that have some kind of a moat, obviously. So either they're protected by the network effect or their products. When users use the products, it's painful for them to stop using them, or they have a great brand name. And I'm primarily interested in businesses that they've already figured something out. They already have a platform in place, and the investment thesis is they just need to keep doing what they're doing. I don't like to invest in anything that requires some Herculean effort or a new product to be introduced and you're hoping that consumers will love it. I like to go with as close to a sure thing as I can possibly get. So when I'm analyzing a business, one of the things that I love to see is lots of recurring revenue. So the customers that they have buy from them continually, and the platform. So that way, as the platform attracts new customers, revenue and profits just continue to tick higher and higher and higher every single quarter. I like a clean balance sheet, so I don't like to see companies with debt. I like to see that the business is young, which usually means that the founder, the people that really put their heart and soul into the business, are still running the show in some way. And I like to see companies that have really great reviews from employees because in today's really competitive talent environment, attracting and retaining key employees is absolutely critical, especially in the small cap tech space. So if they don't have a great culture that people want to work at, I'm not interested.
And so all these businesses that we're going to be talking about today check all these boxes. Why don't we first start talking about this company, HubSpot?
Sure. So I got a question for you. So when is the last time, Dylan, that you answered a cold call, opened up a letter in the mail, or watched a TV commercial and you actually changed your buying behavior?
I will tell you that I get a cold call every single day. You get those phone calls that it's like your area code and, some telemarketer, some automated telemarketer sending you some garbage automated message. And I've learned to just block every single one of them. Yeah. So never to answer your question.
And that's the world that we're living in today. People have, for decades, the traditional way that companies found new businesses they would advertise with spots on TV and spots on the radio. But consumers really hate to be interrupted. So that's why they use caller ID to make sure they never pick up a phone call that they don't recognize, or they use DVR to skip a TV ads, or they put their phone number on do not call lists. So these realities are just making it harder and harder for companies to kind of shout out their message to their consumers that they want to reach. So in response to that, this company called HubSpot basically is taking the traditional marketing playbook and flipping it on its head. So they're pioneering a strategy that they call inbound marketing. And the idea there is don't spend all your time, money, and energy shouting at people and interrupting people to get them to learn about your product. Instead, do what create easy to use content like blog posts, like videos, so that when people are searching for a product or service like the one you're offering, that you are easy to find. So the idea is to put out blog posts that are helpful, that people will actually want to read naturally when they have a problem, and to essentially get people to come to you when you have a need.
So instead of blasting a message, you're kind of creating these organic, maybe outreach in quotes here, because the people are actually coming to you, experiences with potential customers.
Exactly. And think about your own shopping needs. When you have a problem and you're interested in learning about a new product, what's the first thing that you do?
Search it on Google.
Yeah, exactly. You type in the problem to Google, or maybe you go to YouTube and you look at a video for how to solve it. So that's exactly what HubSpot does. So they offer tools that help companies to grow their social media presence, or to rank highly in search engine optimization, and to really put out kind of free to consume content that builds up their brand and helps them to build trust with customers, so that when they are actually ready to buy, they're already familiar with the company. And this is this is proven to be hugely impactful for getting new customers to come onto the brand.
Well, it sounds like a business that kind of rides the tailwinds of e-commerce and digital marketing very well too.
Absolutely. Now, and HubSpot's kind of target market is they're going after businesses that have between 10 and kind of 2,000 employees. So they're going after kind of the small companies that don't traditionally have the huge budgets.
Yeah, so they're kind of a fix for resource poor companies. Basically, it's nice to be a one-stop shop, and that's actually something we're going to see with a lot of these businesses we're going to talk about. Is you have a provider that makes it really simple to do something that you would have kind of an entire department do if you were a larger company.
Absolutely. So HubSpot kind of sells using a software as a service or SaaS model. So customers come on and they subscribe, and they can use all kinds of tools to help manage basically that filter process that brings new customers into their business. And these guys are just growing like crazy. They currently have over 41,000 customers that have signed on to their platform, and the average customer spends over $10,000 per year with HubSpot. So that translated into about $375 million in revenue last year. So these guys are just growing like crazy, and companies everywhere are really signing on to their platform.
And that growth comes at a price. And we'll see that with all these companies we talk about. I think they're roughly a $4.5 billion company right now. So you think about that, that's about 10 times sales, a little bit more than 10 times sales.
Yes.
And that's what you're going to pay for these very scalable businesses that are growing very quickly.
Absolutely. And these guys are growing like mad, and they're absolutely in build-out mode. So HubSpot only recently became profitable and cash flow positive because they were investing everything that they earned back into the business to kind of scale out their platform. But I'm personally interested in this business because they are free cash flow positive, so they're no longer consuming cash at the rate that they once were. Their co-founders are still highly involved in the business. In fact, they're the CEO and the CEO. Their company culture just gets rave reviews on review sites like Glassdoor.com, and while they've already grown like mad, and their stock and investors have already done very well by buying into this company after the IPO, the company thinks that its total addressable market is about $45 billion annually. So you compare that to the $375 million that they pulled in last year, and the tailwinds that they're riding, and I think this business can grow very, very quickly for years to come. Yeah,
it certainly seems like there's a pretty good growth runway ahead of it. Why don't we talk about company number 2, and this is AppFolio.
Sure. This is a really a company that I really like a lot too. So these guys cater to the needs of small and medium-sized businesses that are kind of in niche markets that you wouldn't normally think of, and none of these are consumer facing. So AppFolio was founded, and their initial target market was the property management business. So you think about companies that own, say, a small apartment complex or a multi-family building. So if you were a property manager, what kind of things are like critical to making your apartment profitable? Well, you need to attract clients. You need to make sure that they're paying their bills. You need to be able to foster communication between the client and the property manager if there's like maintenance things. You need to do help with background checks on potential tenants and screening. So there's a hodgepodge of software that's kind of out there that can kind of help with each of those things. AppFolio basically took all that and put it together on a cloud-based platform and they sell their service to property managers. So they can come onto AppFolio's platform. They pay a small subscription fee, and they get access to basically all of those services in one easy-to-use cloud-based system that can be managed through a cell phone or on a tablet.
And you talk about this market, and even just hearing you describe it, property managing software, like there's a niche there. There's a pretty clear niche, and frankly, it's a space that's probably a little too small for big players to want to hop in.
Absolutely, yeah. There can be a big advantage to staying in niche, is that the big software boys don't really, it's just not big enough market for them to go after to really invest the resources to make a customized solution. But AppFolio is really, they're not so much a property management company as they are just trying to dominate a few small niches, and by combining them together, they can grow into a kind of a much bigger software platform.
Yeah, they're getting outside property management, right? They're doing something in kind of the legal space as well?
Exactly. A couple years ago, they bought a company called MyCase, which it caters to the needs of legal professionals. So you think about a small law practice. Well, they also need help with billing and tracking their time and attendance and marketing themselves. There's always back office stuff that these companies need help with. So AppFolio recently entered into that business too through an acquisition. It's still very small. It's less than 10% of their revenue. The property management business is about 90% of the market right now. But between these two, they're adding customers to both platforms at a double-digit rate. And the way that they make money is their customers pay a recurring monthly subscription fee just to be on the platform. But they also sell kind of premium, what they call value plus services on top of that. So if you wanted AppFolio's app to facilitate taking money out of the client's checking account and sending it over to the property manager, like so they can pay their rent, AppFolio's platform can do that for them, and then they just take they charge an extra small fee for that. Or if they wanted to do a detailed background check on a potential while they're screening for tenants, you can also do that on AppFolio's platform, but they also charge a small fee for those kind of services.
And you talk about the stickiness of the platform. I think that they have a customer retention rate of like 97% or something.
It's extremely high.
Right?
Yeah, that's a big reason why I love software as a services businesses. Once a customer gets into the platform and their entire back office gets set up around using this platform, it becomes extremely painful for them to consider switching providers because everything is built through this one platform. So it makes the business very, very sticky.
Well, and you have employees that are trained on using that, right? So there's the actual friction of switching systems and maybe not having the data interplay the way that you would like it to. But there's also the cost of having to retrain employees to use these programs, or to bring in vendors and kind of review these offers from new vendors, which is just going to be tough for everyone's time, especially if you're a smaller business.
Absolutely, especially since if you're a smaller business, you don't really have time to do that kind of stuff. So AppFolio is growing its top line extremely quickly. Last year was 40% year-over-year top-line growth, about $144 million in revenue. So again, they're going after niche markets, but they're still big enough to actually become profitable, become cash flow positive. Their balance sheet is squeaky clean. And another thing I like about this company in particular is that the founders of the business are the chief technology officer and the chief strategy officer. So they're still very involved, very high inside ownership rates. And this is another company that just gets a rave review from employees about the culture that they have.
And this is a business that's around a $2 billion market cap. And so we talk about kind of serving these smaller markets. You don't need to be humongous to make that happen. And if you see good growth in those markets, there's certainly a lot of upside. It's a lot tougher to double as a $10 billion business. It's a lot easier to find that big multiple as, a $2 billion company.
Yeah, absolutely. And management claims this business, between their legal channel and their property management business, they think it's about a $5 billion opportunity. So compare that to their $144 million in revenue. There's still plenty of room for this company to grow.
Much like HubSpot, just scratching the surface of what management sees.
You got it.
And another kind of smaller player here is Paylocity. So this is this company, I think it's about like $1.7 billion market cap business. What do they do?
So Paylocity does cloud-based human resources software. So they're kind of, as you might guess from their name, their kind of bread and butter is payroll. So they go after small businesses that have, a few employees just to get them on a platform that for doing payroll. But they also offer a a number of other services kind of on top of that. So payroll is kind of how they get their foot in the door, but they also offer things like benefits management. You can do time and attendance on there. You can do employee reviews and a whole bunch of just like general HR functions on their platform. As you can imagine, this is a very old business. So when you think about like your ADPs and your Paychecks of the world, those guys have existed for years. What Paylocity does that's a little bit different is they were founded on a mobile-first strategy. So their software is 100% based in the cloud, and it's really designed to be used on a phone, a tablet, or PC kind of last. So that's how they kind of set themselves apart from the big boys.
Yeah, hearing you talk about this company, I'm reminded in a way a little bit of another business that I really like, and that's Square. And you think about how it's mobile-first. It seems like it's very oriented towards small shops and kind of making the getting set up very simple.
That's exactly right.
For small business owners. HR stuff, one, it's a space that you want to have your stuff together. You want to be organized, but it's something that a lot of people don't have training doing. And having organized systems, kind of coming into this is what this should look like, and picking up that template from a business is really helpful. It's also stuff that a lot of people don't really want to do. And so, having a company that can take care of some of the messier or maybe less sexy parts of your business is always going to be a good opportunity if you're looking for places to serve customers.
Absolutely. I mean, and payroll is boring, but it's absolutely mission critical, right? I don't know about you. I like getting a paycheck every week.
Yeah, I like to. I only get paid every 2 weeks, so every 2 weeks I look forward to it. Though.
Yeah, absolutely. and there's just a whole bunch of when you take on an employee, there's some things that they just naturally expect from the business. They expect you to have like your 401k set up. They expect you to have your payroll act together. They expect to be able to have some kind of system for logging their hours if they're hourly. So what I like about Paylocity is once they kind of get their teeth into a business, they can then layer on services on top of that to bring in more functionality. So these guys recently just acquired a small company that provides flexible spending accounts and health savings accounts. So they're starting to get into the health insurance side of it. And with that acquisition, they can then take this thing that they built and then offer it out to all of their clients to kind of grow their revenue within their client base, let alone when they add on new customers. So this is a repeat purchase business. Their top line is growing very quickly, 25% annually. 97% of their revenue is recurring. They did about $300 million in revenue last year, which was high enough to get them to profitability. They're cash flow positive, and management sees an opportunity in the U.S. of about $26 billion. Now, these guys are facing much more competition, I would say, than the other two because, again, they're butting heads. They'll eventually butt heads with the likes of ADP and Paychecks, but I think that they have a solution that's unique enough that they can still continue to grow quickly.
So we've talked about 3 different businesses here, and the reason we're talking about these companies, you own all these companies, Brian.
I own all 3 of them, yes.
If you have to pick one that you're like, this is my highest conviction of the 3, which one is it?
Again, I own all 3. I plan on holding all of them for the long time. But if I had to pick one, I would probably go with HubSpot. I think what they're doing with flipping the marketing script on its head, I think that's a very long tail opportunity. And these guys are absolutely the leader in this space. They're the ones that are pioneering this, much like the way that, say, Salesforce.com pioneered the shift to the cloud 15 years ago. These guys are pioneering the shift to inbound marketing. And I think that their opportunity is just so massive that is probably my favorite idea.
Yeah, thinking about what all these different businesses do, HubSpot is the one that is almost kind of creating a space.
Absolutely.
Some of the others are kind of creating functionality that is mirroring what is also out there already, or just kind of making it simpler. It seems like there is a kind of whole new space for these companies to be playing in. And oh, by the way, like we have the institutional knowledge to get you there.
Absolutely,
when a lot of these companies don't have that.
Yeah, and these guys, like I said, they're absolutely the leader, so much so that they actually hold an annual, they call it the Inbound Marketing Conference, and it's attended by like 20,000 marketers every year, and the attendance keeps going up. They actually also have an inbound certification program. So if you're a company and you're interested in this, you can send your employees to HubSpot to get certified at becoming an inbound expert. So these guys, I think, are the far and away leader, and I don't know about you. I don't see it going back to the way advertising used to be because that just doesn't work anymore.
I hope it doesn't because I hate getting those calls. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, Brian. I hope we didn't bore your son Tyler too much while he was hanging out behind the glass with Dan Boyd.
He looks like he's got an iPad over there, so he's happy as can be.
Awesome to have you at HQ. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Listeners, that does it for this episode of Industry Focus. If you have any questions or if you just want to reach out and say, hey, you can shoot us an email at industryfocus@fool.com, or you can tweet us at MFIndustryFocus. If you want more of our stuff, you can subscribe on iTunes or check out the Fool's family of shows over at fool.com/podcasts. As always, people on the program may own companies discussed on the show, and the Motley Fool may have formal recommendations for or against stocks mentioned. So don't buy or sell anything based solely on what you hear. Thanks to Dan Boyd for subbing in behind the glass today. For Brian Feroldi, I'm Dylan Lewis. Thanks for listening, and Fool on.